Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to American Real Live. My name is Roger Brooks, and tonight, I have two very special guests. They're two very good friends of mine. The first friend is a longtime friend. I've known him since high school, actually before high school, and we played on the same baseball team, and we grew up together, and he's a dear friend. His name is Tony Bernelli. He goes by Tony. His professional artist name is Anthony Bernelli. He is a photorealist, a world-renowned artist, and his work is shown all over the world. It's in museums, it's in private collections, and I've had him on the podcast a couple of times. So for those of you who have been following American Real, know the name Tony Bernelli. My second guest is David Breyer. He is also a very good friend of mine and a business associate. He is the master of branding, and I'm so excited to bring both of these gentlemen on tonight. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. I know they're going to be sharing the feed of the live on their feeds. Welcome, guys.
Great.
Yeah.
Welcome. Well, thank you. This is exciting. This is the last one of 2020, man.
It is. Do you believe it? The last week of the year and our last live of the year. And gosh, I couldn't have two better people on to celebrate this week. So
Exactly.
Thank you both.
Exactly. Well, I definitely have some stiff competition with regard to the facial grooming action going on. It's a fashion statement is what it is. It's style. It's style and action is what it is. I'm loving it.
So we're going to have a deep conversation tonight. I hope you people are ready. Tony and I talked yesterday because he has been on this amazing quest and journey. I call it Build the Best You. He's been working on his personal development. And unlike any other person I know, literally, the research, Tony, that you have done over the last, 5 to 7 years has been just incredible. You've read many of the books. You listened to many of the podcasts. You've turned me on to much of this. So I'm really, really happy to talk to you about that tonight. We'll jump in a minute. And David, you and I have been going at things hard day in and day out for the past several months. We have a lot to talk about. You offer so much value every single day. Your LinkedIn feed is doing great. And I just can't believe all the engagement you're getting in a good way. It's so awesome. So guys, where do we start? I think where we're going to start is somewhere, because before we went live, Tony mentioned something, and I'm gonna just let him roll with it because he talked about the biggest decision he has to make every single day.
Yeah, no, I mean, the biggest decision that I make every day is what color and what pair of sweatpants that I'm going to put on for the day. And I don't remember the last time I put on a pair of pants. So, I mean, I guess that's success.
Now, in terms of you saying that you don't remember the last time you put on a pair of pants, you are wearing a pair of something. For those that don't have the full.
I'm gonna leave it up to you. If I have to get up and go to the bathroom, see, I don't know.
All right. Well, and look, I think this is a great way to start out this conversation. The fact that knowing that very potentially one of the people that's actually talking right now is going full commando. I think that's awesome.
That's the age of LinkedIn and Zoom and all of that.
It's freedom in its most extreme. I love it.
Isn't that the truth? Tony, what's the painting behind you? Looks like you're working on something new.
Yeah, that's the latest painting I'm working on. I mean, I kind of don't know how to move. It's a painting of Bologna, Italy. And the interesting thing about this particular painting, and I didn't realize when I took the photographs, which was about 10 years ago on one of my trips there, is that you see that tower in the back? There's another tower that you can't see. And in Bologna, they have their own twin towers. That's what they're called. They're called two towers, but they're the twin towers. They go back, hundreds of years ago. And I just thought it was fascinating that, I did a painting right before 9/11 of the twin towers. 9 months. I took the photographs 9 months before 9/11 happened. And it's just eerie. And the interesting thing about this particular painting too is that everything, the vanishing point leads to those towers.
Yeah.
Everything, the lights, because it's at dusk. I mean, it was pretty profound when I noticed that. I just noticed it last week. You know, that kind of can parlay into what we're going to talk about tonight, because that's exactly how I've lived my entire life.
Yeah.
You know, I live a very intuitive life. I've always done it. I don't really know any different. So I go with intuition first.
That's very, I have a couple of questions I have to ask, only because see you I don't know if you know this about me. I actually was a fine artist when I was in my teens, and so I've been involved in arts and such. I mean, I chose a specific path down design, but with that as a background, so tell me. So I have some technical questions. So first of all, what's the rough dimension of that? Question number one.
It's like 28 by 40 something.
Okay, 20 by 40 something. And do you do it on a canvas, or do you do it on a different surface?
Yeah, I mean, you can. Yeah, what I do is I stretch the canvas on a board.
Yep.
I don't. Then when it's done, I stretch it over.
Then you stretch it on a frame.
Yeah.
All right, cool. And then and do you use oils, or do you use a different medium?
Yeah, it's oils.
Oils. Cool.
Yeah. Which
cool.
they're right there.
Very cool. Awesome. How long do they? I have to ask this because I know things have advanced, and this will be my last art question. So when I was doing painting with oils, it like took forever for them to dry with turpentine and benzene and all kind of stuff. Is it still the same, or have they actually changed the formulations so it's a little faster, or no?
No, we go back to the age of Da Vinci. It's still the same, except I don't sit there and grind my own paints now. I mean, it's yeah, but there's now really wonderful, there's extenders or there's dryers. So like you can use a medium called liquid, and or you can, if you want the paints to even extend the fluidity, you can actually add other kinds of oils. There's so many different oils now.
Oh, so it allows you to adjust the texture, so it's not always the same consistency.
Yeah, no, I mean I mostly paint with just linseed oil, and at the very end, like, so now I'm at a stage which this is called the overpainting.
Yeah.
I've completely covered the painting, and now I've got to go back over it, everything. So like most people are done at this stage and would just present it to the world. I have another month or two left on this particular painting, just because it's I don't know if it's my neurosis or just whatever. It's just I know when it's done for me, and that's really all that matters. And so now what I'll do is I'll use what's called liquid. Now that actually will dry it within an hour or so.
So how many hours over what duration of time would you invest in a painting like this?
This is actually, I would consider it a small to medium sized painting for me.
I was actually surprised when you said the dimensions. I was going to expect.
Yeah, I normally do 6 to 8 foot paintings, and
that would make sense to me.
From 8 months to a year.
Yeah.
This one, this was kind of crazy. I can give you the rough idea, but this is stop, start, because I literally over the last 4 months my life has just been upended in a good way, because I sold a major piece of property and then moved to another area and bought another big piece of property that my entire family moved into in the middle of Pennsylvania, so that I could be next to my grandkids. So, I mean, it was literally in a pandemic where literally, I had to actually get a 5-story building packed up, move it. The contents were sitting in a U-Haul truck for 2 months in my daughter's driveway until we closed on the new property. And, we're finally in. We did a little bit of remodeling, and this is kind of a makeshift studio right now until the spring, when I can break ground on something here.
Very cool. Very cool. All right.
So yeah, it's about a 3 or 4 month process for this painting.
Cool. All right. I'll shut up, Roger. I'll let you take.
No, look, they're great questions. I'm the same way. I ask Tony all these detailed questions all the time, and I am intrigued, Tony, about the Bologna painting, because I've actually been there. And my family and we went into the tower, so it's pretty remarkable that only one is showing in the painting. But talk about something you alluded to earlier, and that's that you lead a life of intuition. Explain a little bit about what you mean.
you know, I think I lead with my heart first, and it's always been that way. And so this particular conversation that we're having is about what I forgot the title of it already, but it's about
Unleashing your talents to the world in
yeah.
2021.
So I mean, I came out of the womb kind of doing that, which I probably frustrated my mother and father to no end, because Roger, you've known me a long time. I can be pretty stubborn. I'm pretty narrow focused when I get my mind on something. I'm going to complete it. There's nothing that's going to stop me, and that's just the way it's always been. And I just don't know any different. But now, when midlife hit, it's definitely taken a turn towards a different area, which I have the same focus, but it's a completely different thing. I mean, the book Malcolm Gladwell, is it Outliers? He says that to become an expert in your field, you need a minimum of 10,000 hours. And it was very interesting. He talked about the very fact that 8,000 won't even do it. I mean, I don't know how he did it, but it was pretty in depth. It was a pretty interesting book, and his take on it was that if you invest 10,000 hours in something and dedicate yourself to it, you will become an expert in that field. And I mean, by the time I, went through college, I had easily over 10,000 hours. And in 10th grade, I met a major photorealist painter on a class trip to New York City, Chuck Close, who changed my life. I mean, I had never seen a photorealist painting prior to that. And I walked into the gallery in New York City. It was in Soho. And I could not believe these paintings. They were 9 foot tall, black and white. They looked like black and white photographs of these people, portraits, of these people.
I saw one of the ones you were talking about at the Museum of Modern Art when I was growing up.
Yeah, but it was done with this thumbprint. And when I got up close to it, I was like, "You gotta be kidding me!" It looks like And so he happened to be there that day, and me, I was like, I got to go up and get a photograph with this guy, because I had my camera for a photography assignment that I was going to do while I was down there. And I went up and I just started talking to him, and he was really generous. And so when I got home, I got every book I could from the library and the bookstore on Chuck Close, which then led me to the photorealism movement. And the rest is history. I mean, that was it. I mean, it was like a lightning bolt hit me that day in that gallery. I think we've all had those moments, but this was it was the defining moment. I knew from that moment on, because I thought I was going to be a cartoonist. I thought I was going to be in advertising design, but from that moment on, it was like, this is what I want to do. And so, I spent the next, 5 to 6 years trying to develop my style, which that is the hardest thing. When I speak to schools, or I give lectures, or I give a visiting artist, it's like, the thing is, I can teach the hell out of this. I can teach you how to do this. If you give me the time, I can teach you how to do it. But the subject matter, like the pointing out in the beginning about that tower, there's some intuitive nature that is like, that happens for me, because I've tapped into it. I've tapped into it at such a young age that I find myself coming. I literally traveled the entire world, and no matter where I went, it was like I found home. You know what I'm saying? It's like I found it. I found the place and where in which I lived, and I'm talking I've been in the jungles of Vietnam. I've been in the Cambodian temples, to the streets of Italy, to all over. And it's a wonderful feeling, because I feel like I could go anywhere, and I'll find something, because I use that innate ability, and you can't teach that. That's something that has to be explored through each individual. And that's the other point, is that I think the best advice you can give somebody is to be yourself, which I think is probably the single hardest thing that you could do. And my wife is always telling me, especially when my second wife, because she came into the picture when my kids were teenagers, which I had 2 daughters, and thank God she was there, because boy, that is a trial by fire, raising 2 teenagers, especially on your own. And she would always say to me, she's like, not everybody's like you. Not many people know what they want to do. And because I used to always tell my kids, I was like, just do what you're passionate about. And they were like, well, I don't know what I'm passionate about. And I guess that's the exception. I'm the exception and not the rule.
Well, let's ask Mr. Breyer, who is also an artist. David, what was it like for you growing up? Did you have this intuitive feeling as well when it came to your love of art?
Well, I always loved art. Growing up in New York City, New York City to me was like being immersed into a cultural theme park. I mean, so going to Greenwich Village and roaming the streets and the cobblestone streets and and the food and the music and so no matter the medium, I absorbed it and loved it. And I loved drawing, and I loved, I loved drawing. I taught myself quite a bit, and then I went to the Art Students League and studied some of the various life drawing teachers. Like the one that was most memorable to me was Gustav Rehberger. This guy was like a really brilliant artist. And that's what it was like for me. But interestingly, I had my epiphany moment. It went in a different direction than Tony's. But for me, I was going, okay, how am I going to turn this into a career? So I figured, okay, I was going to be an illustrator. It was my sort of initial decision as I was like going through college. And then I was like, and then there was that one moment. I went to a drawing class, and I think my teacher's name was Mr. Powers, and he was a very big kind of personality. He had a very full mustache, big personality, and talked very loudly, very oratorially, And I arrived a little bit before class started, and there was resting on a drawing table this magazine, it was a newspaper magazine that I'd never seen before. It was not something you would see in newsstands. It was actually something for the design community. And this was in 1980. And I saw this, and my eyes were riveted because when you're looking at being an illustrator, especially at that time, and this is going back. So for those that are younger who are listening to this show, okay, there were these things called albums, okay? They were 12 inches square, okay? And album art was a really cool medium, right? Album art was cool, but and so I know for those of you that might be a certain age, you might say, well, I remember CDs. Well, that was nothing. And then now it's really nothing. It's a freaking thumbnail because everything's digitally streamed. But so album art was really a big thing. It was like, ooh, seeing, certain artists and oh, wow, right? And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to have to work with art directors. I'm going to create my thing and give it to an art director who will then hopefully make the right decisions and do the right things and not make bad choices with the wrong typography and the wrong fonts. And so I then see this publication. And I was dumbstruck. I was like, oh my God, I saw a level of craft with design. And it was all black and white, by the way. So this wasn't like glossy. It wasn't like the print production wasn't. It was the craft. There was what was chosen to do and not do, and the usage of lettering and stuff. And I turned to the next page, and I saw the contents page, the next page, and I was like, nothing was done randomly. It was so deliberate. It was so conscious. And I just then turned to next, and each page was discovery. It was amazement. It was excellence in action. And at that point I decided I'm going to be a designer. That was my moment of, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to learn and now perfect the skills that go into what I just experienced. That was my holy shit moment. And then I just started to embrace because there was story incorporated into it. There was a layer of editorial story. There was a layer of editorial conveying, and like a well done movie has multiple layers. That it visually engages us, The characters engage us, the storyline, the plot, the tension, the push, the pull. The same thing happens in music. The same thing happens in great food. The same thing happens in anything. And so, and Roger, from hearing me talk with the various people, clients, applicants to the masterclass, that anything that is ordinary has the opportunity to be extraordinary. Why the hell not get there? And so I always push to that. And so that was my moment.
Yeah. Well, it seems like we had we started, and then, you know, you were fine art, and then you went to design, and I was design and went to fine art. I mean, but we both had those moments, you know, and you just know, you just really, really know. I think more especially if you tap into that intuitiveness. I mean, I really think that is, in my opinion, the thing that I feel we need more than ever right now, you know, especially with the situation that we find ourselves in. There's so much confusion going on in the world. And I think that it's through the confusion that it'll set you free, because it will allow you have to tap into it. There's no way out of this unless you do.
True.
Otherwise you're going to be, I mean, there's no end to the amount of control that can be done to you, against you. This is the time for everybody to tap into that creative, because everybody is. Every single human being is born with this level of creation and this ability to create. They just are afraid. They're afraid to expose themselves. They're afraid to allow themselves to be that. And I think that this time right now, more than ever, is the time. And I think the creatives are going to rule the world right now. They really are. I mean, never have we been in a time where everything is tumbling down. And you talked about music and albums and all that. Look at that industry and what happened to that industry. You know, my industry, the art industry, is just, it's utter chaos, but there's people that are just being like Phoenix, you know? And I think it goes back to what you were trying to say about the cream will rise to the top. That is really the message, that, you know,
as long as you have good coffee, and which as long, like for example, like Biff Do Gudina, that's a brilliantly wonderful coffee that I get from a roaster in Raleigh, North Carolina. And as long as you and if you have that, it's like anything. If you have a good foundation, the good stuff will rise to the top. If you have a lousy foundation, everything's going to sink to the bottom. So I completely agree with your point, especially as relates to coffee.
All right, so let's jump in and help some people tonight as far as the theme of this, and that's really how to unleash your talent. And Tony, I believe you started to get us there, right? Tapping into your intuition. We all have this gift inside us. How do we get to it? How do we find it? How do we get past the fear? One of the things that I was just actually writing about this morning is to find that within stillness.
Absolutely.
It's hard for a lot of people to be still, to be quiet, to have, you know, be in silence. But that's really, if you ask yourself questions, you could go as deep as you want to go. And Tony, I know you've been doing some meditation for a few years now, transcendental meditation. Talk about the power of meditation, the power of stillness, and how you could really tap into your own, internal tools.
Yeah, look, I mean, you've been on this journey with me, Roger, as well. So you know the backstory, and I'm not, you know, we've done plenty of interviews about it, but the people that are new should know that, I mean, about 6 years ago, I had a collision of a dark night of the soul, where I had a terrible ice hockey injury with a brain injury. At the same time, my mother was succumbing to her 8-year battle with multiple myeloma, stage 4 cancer. And they kind of colluded in one thing. And I literally, like, it just was, it was a loss of everything. And I was overcome by unrelenting anxiety that I never had in my life. And I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know where it came from. And then violent thoughts. And I started to just contemplate non-existence because it was just so terrible. I can't even explain it to people. It's just like one day you're living and the next day your life is completely different and you're not. So I had to go on this journey. Look, unfortunately, the medical field just wants to throw a drug in they got a drug for everything. And it's not who we are. It really
No,
is.
it's not. No, it's not.
And so, I'm not going to get on my diatribe like that because look, we all have to find our path in our journey. And I just said, I need to find a natural way to heal or figure it out. And so I just, I started researching what are natural ways to heal post-traumatic stress disorder. I started studying the brain and how the brain works and what happened to mine. And it just led me on this journey with meditation and yoga and communing with nature. And I just started reading about the brain, and then the brain led me to quantum mechanics and quantum physics. I mean, I did everything I could not to do any of these courses when I was in school. From high school to college, all I wanted to do was art. So the very fact that I was like a newborn now with these things, but at least I was an adult that had I had a conviction because I needed to heal myself. I needed to figure this out. And meditation was very hard. I understand. Like when I talk to people about it, they're like, I can't meditate. I just can't do it. And I was in that boat too. I wouldn't have done it until I needed to do it. And then I discovered that it presented myself to it was a way back for me. And I started with just mindful meditation and apps and all of that. And then I just decided to try TM. I used to listen to Howard Stern religiously, and he used to talk about how he did TM and how his mom did TM and how it saved her life. And so when I was in that point, I just said, I gotta go try this. And so I learned it. And the very first session that I had learning TM, the entire anxiety left and it never came back. And that's now 3 years. So that was powerful. That is very, very powerful. And then what it did is it changed my life because it started making me, it started quieting my mind. And and that's what meditation does is it allows your mind to quiet to its stillness state. It's to its original state, until the basically the state of where everything comes from, the void, the nothing, the transcendental place where ideas come from and creativity is born. And when you're at that state, boy, it's just an infinite amount of possibilities that present themselves. So and I'm still going. It's just every day is just a wonderful journey, and this monkey mind that we have has taken over the world. It's been going on for thousands of years, and it's unconscious. And so we've been living by these unconscious patterns, and they permeate. And so then now laws are made that are unconscious, governments are formed that are unconscious, everything, medical fields are unconscious. Everything is just done because it's this unconscious nature that's running the show. And so for me right now, the most important thing is awareness. So the more aware that you are about any situation, it's like a superpower. Like you want to talk about, so right now we're talking to people who are entrepreneurs and who are go-getters and who are trying to get to the next level. I'm going to tell you one thing. There's a key, there's a secret that will get you there. And it's having complete awareness with everything you do. It becomes a superpower. Like you literally are, and it really isn't a superpower because it's your natural state. But when you are aware, just think about it. When you're in a negotiation and you're aware of everything and you're going into it aware and you're not going into it with fear and you're going into it with, instead of fear, it's love. It's like when you're going to negotiate something, it's a relationship. Like you're not trying to get the most out of everything. You're trying to say, I want that person walking away to feel as good as I do, knowing that the deal is the best deal that you could possibly do. I mean, that really is the key to, I think, success is that. And it really comes down to awareness. And that's what meditation has done for me, is it's allowed me to settle. Obviously I had a lot of anxiety, so that had to really get through. And through that, I started learning some, as Carl Jung says, we all have a shadow. And so instead of neglecting the shadow, I started to embrace it. instead of trying to get rid of it, I was like, okay, it's a part of me. I have to carry this shadow along with me, but I want to be in control. And that shadow still comes up. It's daily. It's going to come up. And so now I just talk to it quietly and say, thanks, I appreciate it, but I'm in charge right now. And it just goes back down. It always listens, you know, it always listens as long as you, like literally right before this interview happened, I was caught with a huge pendulum. And Roger knows what I'm talking about, a pendulum, but basically all we are is energy. Anything is energy, and that was discovered in quantum physics. Quantum mechanics is really the only true science that's available right now. Everything else is just kind of like, okay, we've learned about the physical world, but now through Einstein and through Schrodinger and through all of these different discoveries that we have right now, like we have an infinite possibility with the power of our mind, with the power of our actions. What we are being is what we are emitting, and then what we are attracting. So if you want to be fearful, if you want to be in a state of like wanting to get everything, then and screw somebody over in business or whatever, it's gonna come back to you because it has to. It's just the way that it works. And so you know, we are starting the weirdest thing that I'm still trying to wrap my head around is through the experiment that was done with quantum entanglement, where the future is happening before we even know it. So there is the possibility that our thoughts, if we are conscious of our thoughts, we can manifest things like instantly. And I've noticed since I've started transcendental meditation, the quickness in which I want to manifest something is really powerful. And I know you and I, Roger, we've shared the same kind of thing. So you kind of know what I'm saying.
Absolutely. And I'd love to get David's take on this, because David, when you know, I've been part of your master class, so I see how deep you go and how much you care. We've never really had this discussion around it, but a lot of what Tony's saying is what you bring to your work, especially the awareness to help people through the negotiations. Tony, one of the students in the last program in the second week, because of the techniques that David was teaching, landed like a $200 and some $1,000 deal. And he 100% attributed it to David's teaching. So David, talk a little bit about how this comes into your world.
Well, I have been, since my teens, I've always been a student of spirituality and seeking. You know, hell, I think I was 14, 15 years old. I was basically seeking spiritual enlightenment. I was hungry. And basically, you know, I have over the years, you know, I through study and through practice, I know what individuals are capable of. I refuse to allow them to play a smaller game, or to, I mean, if they want to, they certainly have the right to. I'm not going to override their power of choice, but at the same time, I'm very much about this. If someone is assigning the reason that they're doing something because of some outside stimuli, I'm like, let's stop right there. That's a load of bullshit. You decided, yeah, that may be a great excuse, and it may be fantastic and a movie plot, and maybe great. It's like really cool. You get the right action figures. You get you get the maiden that has to be saved and the world that has to be protected, and you know that's great. But let's be real. The greatest of us, the greatest part of us, is that which we emanate and own. And I know this to my core. I don't believe this. I mean, I'm the first one, and Roger's heard me tell me, I'm the first one to say, look, if you are seeking a pep talk, we have nothing to talk about. Because if you want a motivational speech, then what you've just done is you just said, oh, his or her words are powerful. Yeah. They are the reason that give me blah, 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 blah. I'm like, bullshit. You gave the words the power to have that on you. You own it. And if you're going to find it inspiring, there's nothing wrong with being inspired. I'm all about inspiration, but let's not falsely misassign where the true inspiration comes from. And so that's the whole thing. And it's kind of like, I'll be the first one to say, look, anything in the world is only as good as you yourself have inspected it. If you've inspected it, you've owned it, you've been conscious about it, you've put aside going on autopilot, you've put aside doing what I call lazy thinking, like, oh, what tag can I put on that so I could just put it in that box? Oh, okay, good, I'm done with that. You haven't even freaking opened your eyes to even look and smell or taste it yet. How the hell can you be done with it? You haven't even started with it. And that's the way too many people live. And so I'll be the first one to, I choose that as a way of just leading a conscious, non-autopilot life. I don't like stuff being done on autopilot. I think that's crap. Magic never came from being on autopilot. The greatest things in the world didn't come from being on autopilot. The greatest speakers in the world did not come from being on autopilot. The greatest writers, nothing. The stuff that inspires us, that leaves that magic little ooh. The reason I believe that we get inspired is because it reminds us of what we're capable of doing.
Yes. I mean, it's so beautifully said. I mean, it is, and that's why, I mean, I've come across your work through Roger, and recently I don't know a lot, but what I will say is that what I really love is your ability to engage with humor. I think humor is a huge part of life. Like you can't be too serious. Like the stuff that we're talking about and the stuff that I've been doing, and that there was about a 2-year period where it was just dark, man. It was so dark that like I didn't know if I wanted to exist anymore, because I was like, I tasted this and I don't know but I needed to go through that. I needed to feel and taste that to get a little bit more empathy, to become more conscious about others and their plight, so that for whatever reason that I can be that light for somebody, whether it's through the paintings or whether it's through just a conversation. I mean, it is so easy to, especially now, just to go to somebody who's working behind a counter or who's delivering your package. I make it a point to engage them somehow, some way, to let them know that I see them, the power of that is like that little thing. Like you can, because I know what it was like for me when I was starting to come out of it, and the podcasts that I would listen to, and the just, I felt the connection with somebody, and that's what we need. We're so disconnected, I mean, my advice to everybody is get off these damn devices, but after this conversation.
After this one, you can do that.
These devices are wonderful if we're conscious. Like, right. Can you imagine David and Roger, and we are going to do it, the three of us. We are going to create the most conscious world, and we're going to use these devices, and we're going to use we're going to use this mechanical intelligence that we created, but we're going to let the innate intelligence that has created everything, has created our thoughts, that's created everything, the cosmos. We're going to allow that. We are going to build the most amazing society that you can ever imagine. But guess what? We got to let go. We got to surrender to the fact that we don't know everything, that we can't know everything. And you know what? It's the biggest thing for me is that changed my life is that I always was a rugged individual. I had to go make it happen. I had to go do it. I worked 3 jobs. I was a father at 17. Nothing was going to put me down. And I'm the one that kept throwing those roadblocks in my way. And the amazing thing that I've discovered, especially over the last 3 years, the more that I let go, the more it comes to me. I mean, it is, I cannot, and I like what you said. Don't listen to my words. Don't listen to the words at all. Please don't believe a word that I say. Just experience it for yourself. That's all I can say, is that once you experience it, once you taste it, you'll never go back. Never go back. Yeah. And that's, that's wonderful. And I wanted to say that to you about the humor, because it's the humor that separated you from all the rest of the stuff that's out. There's so much stuff out there. There's so much self-help stuff that is saccharine. It just I've talked about this with Roger, because it's like you know, and I am a big Tony Robbins fan. I like Tony Robbins. I think that he does a lot of good, and he did a lot of good for me. And the interesting thing is, there was partly when I started to get feeling better, I was like, maybe I'll go to one of his seminars. But then I got thinking about it, and I'm like, I'm such a unique individual. I just don't know how he could help me. And then I said to myself, you know what? Let me do it on my own. Let me do this. I don't want to be in a room full of 10,000 people in an auditorium, you know. And I kind of like what you and Roger have doing. I think it's a little bit more intimate. I know that you want to grow it, and it will, but there's something to be said about acknowledging somebody. And when there's too many people, you just can't. And I think you can kind of cut through the you know, the people that aren't really serious, you know, and
Totally.
start jacking up the price so that you really get the people who really want it, you know. And money is an illusion as well. You know, that's the thing, is I grew up with scarcity mentality my whole life, because we were kind of, you know, lower middle class, poor, you know, we really didn't know. So I always felt like you had to go out and you got to do this. And I don't have a problem with hard work if you enjoy it. Like this new property, I went and put a fence in. I literally dug about 12 holes by hand, and you know, I enjoyed it. I wanted to do it. It was a way for me to exercise. It's a way for me to commune with nature and do it, and say that, you know what, I'm not above this. People were like, why don't you just hire somebody? And I'm like, every time I drive by that fence, I know that I did it. I know that I would hit rocks, and I would say, ugh. And then I had to go out and get a tool that would dig it. And the people around, it borders this really fancy neighborhood, and they're all walking around, and they're walking their dogs, and they're looking at me, and they're like, are you the new owner or the worker? And I'm like, no, I own the place. And they're like, well, if you want to join our maintenance, you know, we'll have your lawns cut and your this and that. And I have that in Florida. I don't need that here. One of the reasons why I bought this property here was so that I could get into the land and do it. I'm going to have a garden. You know, we're thinking about getting chickens. It's going back to that. We got to remember that this technology that we have is only as good as the consciousness that we bring it. And you know, that's really what I want to say, is never forget that. It's not about having to work hard.
Totally.
It's about working smarter.
Yeah, and you know, you brought up a good point about David with his humor, and I don't know if you know this about David, Tony, but his slogan, his tagline is "Rise above the noise." So what can we do as individuals, and whatever we do, to differentiate ourselves from the rest? Because we're all good at something, but if you have 10 good people at the same level, what can you do differently that sets yourself apart? And David, I think we lost your signal.
There's like someone who's trying to literally call me right as we're speaking. So that's why so here's the thing. I haven't answered that question.
Get him on the phone.
And hold on. I don't know how to disconnect it. So hell with them. I'm sorry. If you hear me, to hell with you. But I love you. Bye. So the thing is it's what there's a key point that basically Tony had made, which had to do with awareness. Most people are person. I'm sorry. I don't know how to make this person not. Hold on a second. I don't know how to do it.
You want to put on Do Not Disturb?
Let me just see if I can. Let me see if I can make that happen. If I can do this real quick and go boom boom. Okay, boom. Okay, that I think is going to handle it. Okay, so here's the thing. So awareness. Most people are incredibly unaware. They just are. They don't see the thing in front of them. They don't look at a day newly when they wake up. They don't taste the thing. Points that it's one of the points that I actually have embraced is when I'm creating a brand, I have to actually reintroduce what that company has created to themselves, because they've gone into kind of autopilot. They've gotten very myopic. They've just gotten lost down the path. They've gotten in the labyrinth of the noise and the this and that, the other. And they've gone on really on autopilot. They've stopped looking. They've stopped tasting. They've stopped seeing and smelling and anything. So I literally introduced, and I remember the most dramatic one was a city that I actually had to brand. And I looked at this city. I did a tour of the city, and it was just amazingly quaint. It would have been. I took photographs of it because I'm like you. If I go to a place, I'm like you would go nuts, Tony. You go, oh my god, these wonderful little things of wonderful exposed brick and architectural details and things and such and da 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 da. Wonderful. So what ends up happening is, I hear what they're describing, and what they're describing is not at all what I'm seeing. So I know what they're describing is what they're looking at, this picture that's been sitting between them and the actual world. And so I get a photographer of mine. We do a 2-day walkthrough, taking shots and moments. And then I have a meeting with the entire committee that's responsible for this rebrand. And I go, all right, guys, I want to show you something. And I have these 3 extremely large boards, probably 4 by 6 large boards with tons of photographs. And I unveil it to them, and they're like, what's this? I said, this is your city. And they look, they go,
I live here.
Holy crap, where's that? Oh my God,
Yeah.
Where's that? Oh my God, where's it? All of a sudden they woke up and they discovered. And what the only difference was, I did what was necessary to get them to be aware of what was staring them in the face every day.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's the beginning of everything. If you don't have that baseline of ground zero, if you haven't really arrived at ground zero, most people aren't at ground zero. Most people are 6 feet under ground zero.
Yes.
So, I'm here all week. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But that's where it starts.
Yeah. No, these are great illustrations because it. Yes.
Do I hear you?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Hold on a second here. My volume. Let me check my volume here.
Yeah, it's you. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Talk.
This is the great thing about awareness, is that it doesn't matter what you're trying to do. It doesn't matter what field you're in, whether you're an athlete or you're in business or you're an artist or you're just an Amazon worker who's delivering these packages. I mean, I love to have conversations with people about that. I love to know what they do. I don't care if you're just the guy delivering or, I was talking to the mailwoman just a couple of days ago. You can't imagine the amount of packages that they're delivering. And I just started asking her just questions about it and the process. And I'm like, you gotta be just inundated right now. How do you do it? And she's like, yeah, you just stick your nose to the grindstone and you just keep doing it. And you know what? She's so friendly. She had a smile on her face. She was willing to talk to me. It wasn't like she was just trying to get on to the next thing. And I think that is like, you can have the awareness and the other person doesn't have the awareness. But by the very fact that you're aware, you open up the possibility for them to be aware. And that, that's power. That goes back to the quantum physics, the quantum mechanics, the science of it.
Yeah, and you know what I love about that is people ask, how can they make an impact? How can they do their part to change the world? Having those conversations. No one is above us. No one is beneath us. We are all on the same playing field. What's tough, especially in corporate America, is that people rise to these different levels of power within their organization, and suddenly, someone may be beneath them. And I think the awareness part, whether it's in corporate America, whether it's in sports, whether it's in entertainment, is to everyone plays a role. The guy, the guy holding the camera for Tom Hanks's movie is as important as Tom Hanks, as is the gaffer. Everyone plays a role, and I think if people become more aware of themselves first, and then others around them, and all the pieces that make life happen, but acknowledge it. I love the fact that you talked about the mail carrier, the Amazon delivery driver. All people are important, and that's where we need to start.
We're also interconnected. I mean, if there was ever a time that we realized how much we need, and how much we need a clean globe that we live on. I mean, The very reason that we're so sick right now is because our air is polluted, our water is polluted, and our soil is polluted. So that's everything. That's everything that you ingest. It's everything you breathe. And so those that are taking care of themselves and are finding the situation a little bit easier than those that aren't. And unfortunately, though, I have a feeling, and I've studied ancient civilizations for quite a while now, and it is fascinating. And some of the ancient writings where people lived for hundreds of years. You know, I'm reading this book right now, The Life and Teachings of the Masters of the East, Baird Spalding. It is just fascinating. It just is so fascinating. It's like there were times where it was documented that people lived for hundreds and hundreds of years. And I think that you know, because I do a Vedic meditation, it's you know, it's from the Vedas. It's ancient. They follow yugas. I don't know if you're aware, if you've heard of that, David, but there's 4 yugas. It's 4 cycles. And it's kind of like almost every great civilization had that. They just called it different things. And the yuga that we are in right now is the Kali Yuga, which is the lowest form of consciousness that we have right now. And we're coming out of it. And look, this is all, nobody knows for sure. I'm just giving you what is purported. So 2025, these yugas last for about, it's a 12,000 year cycle. And it's very interesting because the one thing that, and we're now starting to explore, is that the cosmos, is that the way that we revolve around our orbit changes the consciousness of the planet. And so it's pretty wild, it's pretty deep, but it's pretty interesting. But if you look at the history and all the great floods that happened, and all of, like, we're now entering the next mass extinction event on the planet. It's almost inevitable. I'm not trying to scare anybody, but if you look at the past history and all of the extinctions that happened, we've got all the markers for, like, we have probably about 100, maybe 75 to 100 years to kind of figure things out. We may not be able to stop it. We may not. I think the highest level of consciousness people are going to be the ones that are going to carry on and provide a new civilization, just like they have. It's just a cycle. The really positive and wonderful thing is that we are on the ascending side of the Kali Yuga, which means that we are entering in one of the most, the next phase is one of the most conscious stages of existence. So we have the power right now. If you really just take a deep breath and have so much gratitude for all of the things that we have, that each of us have, but that we collectively have. The problem is you got to turn off that damn news, because all it does is promote fear. There's nothing good about it. There's nothing. Don't send me a news agency that you say that, oh, this one's good. None of them are. They don't work that way anymore. They don't report the news. They don't report what's good. Who you are is an infinite being. You are living in an infinite time. And so we have the ability and the power to do this now. So I'm very optimistic. And because I have this process where I surrender to life, I try not to judge anything. And if I do, I have a way of bringing myself back to being conscious. And once you are, and you start realizing, and the gratitude, and how, like this, I was for this beautiful walk in the mountains yesterday, you know, and it was tough because it was icy. And as soon as I got to the normal place where I'm about ready to end, I couldn't get there because of all the rain that came through. It was flooded, and half thinking about taking my clothes off and going through it, you know. And
well, we know even just from the beginning of this conversation, you're naked most of the time. So,
David, I'm in an ice bath right now.
I was wondering. It actually explains a couple of things that we touched upon.
Hey, and if anyone hasn't seen it yet tonight, look at the moon. If your sky is clear, wow, check out that moon tonight. It's gorgeous.
We had it last night. Last night we had it very bright. I'll have to check it tonight.
Yeah,
I know it because we have this wonderful window on our second floor of our home where we look out. We have about, I think, 47 oak trees on our property, and now there's no leaves, and so when we get a bright moon,
Yeah.
I'll just go. I'll take a little bio break from sleeping. I'll go. Oh, I guess I'd probably do that. So I do that, and then I look out the window and I see these incredibly long shadows going across the snow.
Yeah.
Love that. Love that.
Yeah, it's life changing. It really is. When you start realizing who and what you are and where you live, you gotta. How do you not be filled with so much gratitude that you're here right now?
We're alive. That's
you're
the
alive.
thing. We're alive.
We've got to change this paradigm. We really do. And I know that each one of us here are doing our part. But the people that are listening is like, utilize you guys, because I can vouch for Roger and David. You're a new friend, but if you're a friend of Roger, you're a friend of mine. And I like what I see. The humor is what, like, you have separated yourself. Like, I cannot not watch.
You have no idea.
And I can't wait for the next one. I mean, that's the power of it. It just is so fantastic,
That's great.
It's not just the coffee. It's not.
Look, guys, we're almost up against the hour, so I just want to spend a few minutes. If you each could give a couple of tips as people head into 2021, what can they do to unleash their talents? David, we'll start with you.
Well, I'll put it this way. It's something that I just see as a recurring theme when I talk to people. And because of some of the things we've touched upon, oftentimes there's a lot of concentration that people have. So what I'm seeing is like, their questions are, how do I get better? How do I advance my career? How do I? And I think that's the least successful trajectory. I find the more successful, better foundation is a more outward oriented one. Like, how am I going to achieve XYZ for others? How am I going to benefit others? How am I going to bring more life to my community? How am I going to help those that I work with be more successful in what they're doing? And that extroverted orientation will go farther, because it's just built to go farther. How in can you go? It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, whoosh, and it could get to a point where one can get so insular. And so for me, it's a matter of, look at how far can I go? How far do I need to go to actually influence others and how they influence others? And if you look at that ripple outward effect, I think that is the most solid foundation, especially going into this new year, because right now so much is like, people are like, oh, they're struggling, and it's like insular, unisolated. The better thing to do, let's get reconnected. Let's get not only reconnected, let's get reconnected with the objective of incredible infinite expansion for all of those that we come in contact with.
Great. And awesome. I'll piggyback on what you said, because you're coming from it from a different perspective than me, because you have a different journey. And so, but I agree with what you're saying. I will piggyback by saying the way to get there, because Roger and I have talked about this a lot, about you can tell somebody, you can lead them, you can lead the horse, but what is it? Roger and I we've racked our brains. What is that thing that is universal to everybody? And so for me, I found it. It was self-discovery. It was, and I don't care how you do it. You don't have to meditate if there's another way, but I'm telling you that meditation is a very powerful way to bring yourself back to yourself, because ultimately, if you don't know who you are, then you are not going to help anybody else. Matter of fact, look at where we are. We have literally just inherited trauma over and over, generational trauma. It's just, and then when you go to school and then you get made fun of, and then it's just nonstop. This is the time to do it. So the only way through, in my opinion, to get that cosmic consciousness is for you to take care of yourself. And I'm saying to you right now, you're saying to think globally. I'm saying be selfish about one thing, and that's about self-care. But the great thing, and it's a nuance that I don't want anyone to miss. You're saying it to create the foundation necessary to go outward. Yes. That's not the way you're saying it. I think this is the biggest nuance that people should get. What you're saying
It's not the finish line. It's the starting line, and that arrive at the starting line so that you can actually begin the game.
Yeah, we have built
Absolutely.
our society has been built on sand for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. It's time to go to the foundation of consciousness of what you are. That's all. So if we we'll leave it with this. There's only one thing that we know for sure. One thing ever that we ever know, and that's it. And that's that we're aware, that we're conscious. Because none of this, everything we talked about the great moon and the cosmos and all that stuff, if you weren't aware, you wouldn't even know it existed. The only thing that is real is pure consciousness. Start from there. Why don't you start from there? It's that simple. Your life will be easier. You will have so much success that you won't even know what to do. Leave it, David. You know that there are trillion-dollar industries left to be had now. There are trillion-dollar industries. We are going to have trillionaires, and it's not a goal. You shouldn't want to have to be a trillionaire. You should want to be a trillionaire, so you should give it away. So
I love it. So on board.
Why would you want to hold on to that money? That, for me, is a form of mental illness. Is anybody that wants to hold on to that kind of money?
Yeah.
But anybody who wants to have that kind of money and control society is a little scary as well. I think it's about just allowing it to flow, just to flow. It's a flow state. And so start with that foundation of finding out who you are. And the wonderful thing is each one of us is so different, but we all come from that same thing. And we need to find that uniqueness. The uniqueness is what will set you apart and set you free. It's that discovering who you are and then living it, being it. Being, it's know thyself and then be thyself. That is the order.
Love it, guys. Love it, guys. Cool. All right, as we wrap up here, David, tell us about your brand intervention masterclass. How could people learn about it? How do they get in touch with you? What's the best way for them to reach you? But give us a little insight about this class of yours.
I mean, so much of what we talked about is actually is about it. It's not about dependency. It's about being independent. It's not about you thinking like me and the stuff that I tell you. It's about me helping you think independently for yourself. It liberates and it unleashes. And it's different in that I personally was very frustrated with what I saw out there. People would throw rules and rules and rules and rules, stuff to follow. I'm interested in creating leaders, not followers. Right. I'm interested in helping to liberate people. And so that's the basic thing. It's an 8-week course. The last week is actually 2. So it's full 9 weeks, but it's literally, it's a hybrid of masterclass and mentorship. Because literally there's the parts where you learn this, you're shown this particular stuff and it's shown in an exact sequence. And then we do the mentorship part, which is a 2-hour Zoom every Saturday morning. And it is alive. It is, it's fire breathing. It is raw. I'm sure that probably half the class is not wearing anything the waist down. And I'm going to now check. I'm not even taking roll call. I'm just going to go, who's wearing something from the waist down? Okay, raise your hands. Who's not? Okay, good. And if they're wearing sweatpants, I want to know what brands. I want to take real inventory of this. But it's a fabulously empowering thing. If you put it this way, I firmly believe that we each have the opportunity to unleash a revolution into the world. And if you believe that, if you have a revolution, you've always had this notion, I want to do this. I actually have this great skill, but it hasn't really quite hit yet. Then what happens? This is the program that I put together to unleash that. So if that interests you, you can reach out to Roger. You can reach out to myself. You can even reach out to Tony. Tony and I just met tonight, but Tony will say, here's David's number. Give him a call. So, but anyway, that's the thing of it. But if you've got something to bring into the world, your dreams are what's at stake. And do not let your dreams down.
Yeah, I mean, I pose it this way. If, people are so afraid of being selfish and that word and taking time. I can't tell you how many times I run into people and they're like, oh, I just don't have the time. I can't do that. And I'm like, I say that's not being selfish. What's being selfish is not living your true, authentic life for the world. That is the most selfish thing you could ever do.
You got
It's
it.
what has created this paradigm that we're living in. Enough's enough. If you've got fear and anxiety and upset and are angry and are indifferent and all of those kind of things, it's time to own up to it and take charge. Be yourself. Be yourself. Once you start being yourself, you start feeling light.
And the doors open up.
And the doors, and they will open. I promise you. Don't just try it. Take David's course and try it. You'll see.
Tony, let's give yourself a plug here. What are you working on? How could people reach you? What do you have going on for 2020?
Yeah, I don't want anybody to reach me. I'm off meditating. You can contact the gallery. I'm represented by Louis Mizell Gallery in New York City, and I have a gallery with my brother John that he runs called Anthony Brelli Fine Arts. I don't want to hear from you. You call them.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And I'll give one quick plug is I'm releasing a book next week called Build the Best You. Ties into this theme. And what I did was actually, Tony, it's part of a book that you introduced to me by Vladim. And so this is my version of how to build the best you over a 44-day period. So each day there's a passage for 44 days, talk about things like gratitude, silence, non-judgment, a lot of the things we talked about tonight. Tony, you gave me some input into the book. David, you provided some input for the cover. So both of you are part of this project, and that'll be coming out next week.
Awesome.
But guys, this has been a great conversation.
Yeah, it's been great. I've had a great time.
Me too.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. David and I are going to do this again. You never know who the next guest is going to be. We do this on Tuesday nights. We might even have a fourth guest, and we'll probably bring Tony back at some point.
Totally. Oh, Tony, complete honor, man. Had a ball.
Yeah, same here, David. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Roger.